Hello, this is Gretchen, the Verdant Crafter. Today I'm so happy to share 10 cards I made using the Simon Says Stamp November 2018 card kit called Thanks and Leaves. This card kit is jam-packed with awesome products and it was so much fun to use. When I received it, I was incredibly inspired. Unfortunately, I was also very busy, so I forgot most of the things that inspired me about this kit. I had to fall really in love with this kit when I actually found time to use it. This kit comes with a bunch of different things. There are snarky small talk sentiments stamps from Tim Holtz Ideology. There's one pack of Tim Holtz Ideology butterfly adornments. There are two Simon Says Stamp medium weight tags, two Simon Says Stamp 4-bar craft envelopes, this gorgeous 6x8 stamp set called Thanks and Leaves. There's one orange peel metallic envelope, one pack of Simon Says Stamp bronze sequins. There is one sheet each of 100-pound cardstock in orange peel, ivory, and green leaf from Simon Says Stamp. And there's one sheet of Neenah Environmental 100-pound smooth desert storm cardstock. Jumping right into my first card, I'm going to layer ripe persimmon, fossilized amber, or maybe it's wild honey, and candied apple using the ink smooshing technique on my glass media mat over and over again, about 7 or 8 times on one of the white envelopes from Simon Says Stamp. I'm not showing you all of that because I do a lot of ink blending and ink smooshing in this video, and that would be very redundant. I'm adding a little bit of water splooches on it, and I'm drying it with my heat gun. I'm also going to come in with one of the some Copic white ink. This is very thick, very bright white acrylic paint from Copic, and it's used when you basically color somewhere you don't want to when you're doing Copic markers, or you need to add a highlight. I'm going to splash this on to my tag. I'm using a very thin brush, so I'm only getting thin splotches. I'm also going to glue down a piece of the Neenah Desert Storm cardstock onto the front of my A2 card base. All but one of my card bases are A2 card bases. They're top folding, so they're 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I just cut them from Neenah Solar White Classic Crest cardstock, 110 pound, all in a batch and then just use. I chose to do this instead of making card bases from the cardstock that came in the kit because this kit didn't have, I wanted to have more control over how I use the paper than just using it as a card base. Here I've taken one of the adornments. I'm using alcohol ink and one of the felt applicators to put down a very light blue. I don't remember the name of it, but I would say that if it was watercolor, it would be a cerulean blue. I also added some patina alcohol ink. Now I'm using the rest of the ink on that pad to just color a white ribbon, and I'm going to use that with my tag. I chose to color the ribbon that way because then I could have some variety in the color, and I knew it would match perfectly with the adornment. Now you saw the adornment did have white acrylic paint on it, and I did use my heat gun to try and dry it. Then I sprayed it with water to transfer some of the heat from the metal adornment to the water, because water is very good at transferring heat. And then I rubbed off most of the acrylic paint. I'm also going to use, and you don't see it, a little foam dot to sort of fold those ribbons down and keep them from sticking straight upward. I'm using glue, in this case Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, to glue down all of the butterflies. You could have used anything you want. You could have used foam tape, you could have used glue dots, you could have used a hot glue gun. I found that so far, knock on wood, all of the butterflies I glued down have stuck nicely. I have played with them a little bit, and they've been sitting for 12 to 24 hours and all of them have stuck nicely. My sentiment says it may be wrong. The sentiment says I may be wrong, but I doubt it. I did tap on some of the orange Distress Oxide ink and I popped that up with the foam dot, or with foam tape, sorry. Card number 2, we're using the magnificent wreath builder from Gina K Designs. I have a 4-inch square piece of cardstock and I'm stamping different colors with different leaves going around. Right now I'm using this cracked pistachio and one of the small leaves. As I move outward, I use bigger leaves and I use darker colors. So my darkest leaves and darkest colors are, and biggest leaves and darkest colors are on the outside. I stamped and gold heat embossed thank you using some Avery L embossing powder. You could use whatever embossing powder you wanted if you wanted to recreate this. I'm gluing down a piece of the grass green or green leaf cardstock that's cut to 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches onto a card base that is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. And I layered that down. So it's a very simple card. Now, one thing to consider if you make square cards, this will fit into a regular A2 envelope, and that's how I would send it. If you send it as a square card in a square envelope, it does require additional postage. But if you send a square card in a rectangular envelope, it doesn't require additional postage. And another thing to consider is the cost of postage stamps is going up. So first of all, buy those forever stamps. And second of all, maybe take a trip to the post office very soon. Card number 3 is actually 2 cards. I'm layering all of the different leaf stamps so it looks like these leaves are sort of falling downward. And I'm going to clear heat emboss them. Now, the first 3 cards are in the order that I created them. After that, the cards are in random order. So you're going to see things switch back and forth. Right now, I'm using a Versamark stamp pad to try and put down some of the stamping embossing ink. Unfortunately, it is almost dry, so I stamped it 3 times to try and get a good impression. And the last time I stamped it, my paper shifted. So I didn't get a perfect impression, which is why I did it on the green leaf cardstock and then I did it on the orange peel cardstock. I do like the orange peel cardstock better. I like how that one turned out much better. Here I'm coming in with some unicorn white pigment ink from Hero Arts, and I'm using a foam blender to just blend that across the bottom of each of the cardstocks where there are no leaves up to where there are a few leaves. I'm going to use a towel to buff off the excess pigment ink. And then I'm going to come in with some of the life-changing brushes from Picket Fence. I purchased these over the holiday and I have enjoyed using them. And I'm going to use some Altenew Crisp Dye inks. I'm choosing to use Altenew Crisp Dye inks because I have colors that match the cardstock. There are Simon Says stamp colors that match these cardstocks. Unfortunately, I don't have them. So for the green, I used Shadow Creek in their newest set of green inks that were released. And for the orange, I used Fire Brick, which is from the only orange set of Altenew Crisp Dye inks that they currently have in the very beginning of 2019. I'm stamping and gold heat embossing. In the season of Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for you. I stamped that on both of these cards and glued them right onto my card base. These are very simple cards. They go through the mail perfectly, and I think it's a fantastic sentiment. I love how it starts out very dark so that the background is actually darker than the leaves, and then it goes so that, at least with the orange, the background is very light. Certainly my green is much splotchier, and it was definitely a learning curve. Card number 4 was one of the later cards that I made. I am going to blend different greens onto this. I'm using, and you can see that my camera was not properly attached, so it tipped over a little. Evergreen Bough, Twisted Citron, and Mowed Lawn. I'm blending these on, and I'm going to add a few water droplets to smush it, or to add some interest. And then I'm going to layer all kinds of leaves on top of it, and I'm going to clear heat emboss. I'm using a resist technique right now. I chose to use Distress Oxide inks because these colors will layer over one another. And here you can see that I switched to using the Simon Says stamp ink pad. I haven't used it a lot. I did receive it in one of the last kits, and it was fine. I just mostly used the Versamark pad because I've always used the Versamark pad. Here I'm using Cracked Pistachio, Lucky Clover, and Forest Moss inks. To layer over top of these, I'm layering those colors down, sort of no rhyme or reason. I'm going to use a cloth to buff them off, and then I'm going to come and layer the stamps in the open areas and stamp and heat emboss with clear. This way, it will look like the leaves that I stamped and heat embossed first, even though they were stamped and heat embossed first, will look like they're in front of the second leaves that I heat embossed. And I'm also going to come in with a distress ink. Now, the reason that I used a distress ink later is because I think it buffs off the clear embossing powder better, and it doesn't add as much of a chalky finish, and it allows the colors in the background to show through more than if I'd used a distress oxide ink, which has better coverage and will cover it up more. So this is more of a shadow rather than a covering. I'm blending this color all over, and then I made a mistake. I'm gluing it down onto my card base, that's fine. I stamped and used rose gold embossing powder, which in this case is from Ranger, so it's darker colored, to stamp my sentiment right on the card. That's a darker color on a lot of heat embossing already, so it was swallowed up. Here I'm coming in and stamping and regular gold heat embossing my sentiment on Neenah Desert Storm cardstock, and I'm going to fussy cut that out, use foam tape, and stick it on top of the card. One thing that you could do if you wanted to was come in with a little bit of that ground espresso distress ink and use a very light brush or something to brush a little bit over, and then it would match even better. It already looks great with the card. You could also add a little bit of gold twine behind the sentiment to add a little bit more interest, or some sequins or something. As it is, this is just a lovely simple card. Okay, card number 5. If I'd been really smart about doing this, I could have gotten 2 cards from it, or I could have used 1 sheet. So I'm stamping with an embossing ink, and I'm going to use rose gold embossing powder from Ranger to heat emboss all of these different little flower leaves, and then going to come in with a stitched rectangle die and cut it out. Now I'm using the fire brick, and I'm going to use the life-changing brush around the edge. I'm doing this so that it looks like the center of the cardstock is lighter, and I'm going to take one of those beautiful butterflies, and I'm going to put some of the rose gold alcohol ink mixative on it, so it goes from being a gray black butterfly to being a rose gold butterfly. I'm also going to, my sentiment is going to be one of the stickers, and it's going to say, "Relax, we're all crazy. It's not a competition." Here I am using a foam applicator because I wanted to make sure I got it into all of the crevices and crannies, but you could have totally used the foam or the felt applicator. Here I'm using the life-changing brushes to go around the edge of my piece of paper, and I decided that it was not enough. It needed more contrast, so I'm coming in with the stamp that I'd used before, and I'm stamping all of these little leaf flowers. Now I'm going to use foam tape to pop up my middle panel, and in no way, shape, or form are the leaves matching up. They weren't supposed to, they weren't made to, but you could have done the whole panel, cut your thing out, glued down the background piece, and then popped up the middle piece with foam tape, so you could have used 1 piece of paper instead of 2, like I did. I put down my beautiful little butterfly, and I am gluing down these stickers. I found that they like to peel up a little bit. I also put a little bit of the fire brick over it with the life-changing brush. And I'm going to partner that with the orange peel envelope. Card number 6 is a very simple card. It was actually one of the last cards I made when I was I really want to use these stickers. I need something more to do other than ink smooshing with the butterfly. So I have cut down a piece of paper to be 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and I've traced a circle with a white micron pen with a black micron pen. I believe it's a 0.5 micron pen or a 0.5 micron pen. And I'm going to put the sentiment, "A penny for your thoughts." Seems a little pricey. Now I'm tracing the word penny using the black pen, and I'm erasing that. I did think about writing around it, but I decided against that. Here I've smushed a distress crayon in the copper color on my mat. I massaged it with my finger to sort of get a good blend, and then I rubbed it over the penny. I do wish that I'd done that before I wrote the word penny, because the penny word is a little bit obscured when you're close to it, but it's fine. Card number 7 was again supposed to be a simple card that used the stickers, and it actually, it is a simple card, but it took a little bit longer. So I drew a glass with pencil, and I did draw it very lightly. I'm coming in with a bunch of different Copic markers. So in preparation for the marker increase, I did purchase quite a few different Copic markers in an attempt to not pay more later on. It looked splotchy now, but it will even out. And keep in mind, my coloring is done at 3.5 times the normal speed. So I am using BG0000, B0000, B41, and maybe B21. I'm not sure. I'm also going to use C00, C1, and C0 to create a background. So I did try and layer my lightest color on. Then I came in with a slightly darker color and went around the edges to pull it in. My darkest color is in the corners, and then my other not quite darkest is pulling that in. I did use a colorless blender to sort of blend out the background and to add a little bit of interest. And of course, my background, or my bottom, is going to be the C's, which are layered on. I am going to use a sticker, and the sticker says, "This is my cup of care. Oh look, it's empty," from the Snarky Small Talk Sentiments. And I'm also going to use some little droplets. The smallest droplets happen to be from Studio Katya, and the large and medium droplets are from Pretty Pink Posh. Okay, moving on to card number 8. This was actually the last card that I made. I'm using the other tag, and I've stamped and rose gold heat embossed, "So happy you are family." Then I'm going to stamp in rose gold heat emboss, "Friends are the family you choose," which is completely true. I've been very blessed with my family, but not everyone is. And certainly friends are incredibly important, and they are the people that you choose to be your family. I've stamped 2 of the little branches so they intersect. And now I'm going to foam tape up this tag so it's in the middle. I'm also using the closest ribbon, which happened to be gold ribbon. I would have preferred brown, but I would have had to dig for that. And I did decide my background was too plain, so I used I used the Simon Says Stamp embossing ink to stamp the leaves. I think it would have been better to have the same leaves as are on the tag, but live and learn. Okay, card number 9 is one of my favorite cards. I've ink smushed 3 different colors. I ink smushed ripe persimmon, picked raspberry, and wilted violet onto my media mat, and I layered those colors up over and over and over again. Here I've stamped, and I'm going to rose gold heat emboss these leaves. Clearly this is my favorite leaf out of the whole collection, all around the edges. And I'm using a little bit of the rose gold mixative on this little butterfly. I'm going to glue it down with glue, and I'm going to add 3 droplets at the top and 3 at the bottom. Oh, and I cut this out using my stitched rectangle die. I think I got these in August, September, or November, and I was so excited to get them, and then life got super, super busy, and I really have not had a chance to craft or do anything crafty since November. So it's been a stressful time. I put this onto an ivory piece of cardstock on the card base. I added some foam tape to the back of the sentiment. So the sentiment is, today was going great until people. I trim off the excess of this, and of course I use some of those little droplets. I don't know about you, but some days people are just a little bit too much. And I know quite a few people who agree with that. Card number 10 was actually my fourth or fifth card that I made. And it's sort of a recreation of one of the first shaker cards I ever made when I first started card making. Back when I, had some scrapbook paper and I had an X-Acto knife and a ruler. So I stamped orange and yellow and some green leaves all over the background. Now I'm coming in with, or I came in with a little bit of the tea dye or vintage photo to darken everything up. And now I have a piece of acetate where I'm stamping the large sentiment, so grateful for everything you do and your support, but most of all, I'm thankful for the amazing person you are. And I rose gold heat embossed that. I do wish I'd used regular gold heat embossing. I think that would have stood out better. Here I've put my middle down, and in this case I did use a rounded rectangle to cut out that middle. I am lining it up so that my middle and my frame are perfectly aligned. There you can see I lined everything up, and I used score tape to put down the piece of acetate. I'm double layering some foam tape, and I'm going to put that all around the outside. Because I used larger sequins for this, you don't have to make sure that there's no gaps, but I did make sure that there were no gaps. I am also going to come in with a little anti-static powder and go right around the edge of the foam tape to make sure that there's no stickiness and that any static is taken care of. I didn't go over the acetate because that would have clung or grabbed some of that powder and kept it. Here I've added most of the bronze sequins. I'm adding a few droplets of glue and I'm putting sequins down. That way, no matter how the card is stored or held, there will be some sequins in the background. I did feel that there weren't enough sequins, and I thought I still might use the bronze sequins, so I added the rest of the sequins from the mermaid kit that came out in, I think, September. Okay, here are the leftovers. There's a stamp set, most of the stickers, the 2 4-bar envelopes, which would have been great if I'd made just tags, a few bronze sequins, 3 of the butterflies, and here are the cards. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you were inspired, and if you haven't used the kit, I hope that you get a chance to use it. If you have used the kit, bravo, you're doing way better than me. I hope that you've had a great winter break and that this new year is going to be a fantastic one for you. I am hoping that this new year will be a little less stressful than the last few months and a little less busy, but who knows? Life loves to throw curveballs and it's always a surprise. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.